The night rain hammered the rooftop like a desperate warning, and the old wooden door of the lonely house creaked open just enough for her eyes to widen in fear. She had never expected to see the weary-faced janitor from her workplace standing at her doorstep, soaked, trembling, and breathing hard as if he had run for miles. Her heart thudded against her ribs as she stared at the man she barely noticed every day. Yet now, in the storm's shadow, he looked like someone carrying a truth that could shatter her world. That was the moment she whispered, trembling, "Why are you here at my house?" And his voice, low and breaking, answered with a weight she never imagined, "To keep you alive." If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unseen heroes around us, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Soul Tale. Your support keeps these stories alive. The storm outside raged as if it understood the chaos rising inside her chest. She stepped back, letting him enter almost instinctively, though confusion twisted her face. She knew him only as Marcus, the quiet janitor who swept hallways with downcast eyes and a tired smile. No one knew much about him except that he had a little daughter he adored and a life filled with silent burdens. But now, standing in her living room with water dripping off his clothes, he was nothing like the invisible man people walked past every day. There was urgency in him, fear, desperation, and something that made her own pulse stumble. Her name was Ella, known in the office for her calm nature and shy demeanor, someone who rarely raised her voice or attracted attention. She lived alone since her parents had passed away 2 years ago, and loneliness had become a quiet roommate she never invited but learned to tolerate. She worked late shifts, walked home alone, and convinced herself that the universe had nothing dangerous waiting for her. But Marcus's sudden appearance shattered that illusion. He told her in a trembling breath that for the past few weeks he had noticed a man watching her, outside her office, near the bus stop, lurking near the alley she walked through every night. Marcus didn't know who the man was, but he recognized fear when he saw it. He had lived enough hard years to sense danger long before it struck. He had ignored it at first, telling himself that it wasn't his place, but tonight something darker had happened. He had seen the man near her street, following her door, and something inside Marcus refused to remain silent anymore. Ella's knees weakened as the truth unfolded. She had felt strange lately, like someone was moving just behind her in the dark, like her shadow had grown a set of silent steps. But she had pushed the thought away, convinced it was just grief, exhaustion, or imagination. Now hearing it from someone else, her whole world tilted. Marcus didn't come just to warn her. He came because he believed the man wasn't going to wait any longer. The stormy night created a perfect cover, and Marcus feared the worst. His voice cracked as he explained that he couldn't bear the thought of something happening to her, not when he had watched her quietly carry so much on her own, not when kindness still lived in her eyes despite everything she'd survived. He had rushed through the rain without thinking, guided by nothing but instinct and the memory of losing too much already. Ella watched him with a mix of disbelief and gratitude swelling like a tide she couldn't hold back. She asked him why he cared so much, why he risked coming all the way to her home in a storm like this. Marcus lowered his gaze and confessed a truth he rarely shared. Years ago, before becoming a janitor, he had lost his wife because no one warned her in time, because people saw but didn't speak, because the world often ignored danger when it didn't belong to them. He had vowed never to stay silent again. The lights flickered as thunder cracked, and Ella felt a chill crawl up her spine. The wind outside wasn't just a storm anymore, it was a countdown. Marcus checked the windows, ensuring they were locked, and stood near her like a silent shield. Despite his worn-out clothes and weary hands, there was a strength in him that made her feel safer than she had in years. The hours passed in suspenseful quiet. Every faint echo from outside made Ella flinch, and Marcus instinctively positioned himself between her and the door. She learned more about him in those long minutes than she had in years of passing him at work. He wasn't just a janitor. He was a father who worked 3 jobs to keep his daughter in school, a man who hid his pain behind humility, someone who carried scars that never stopped aching. She felt a soft ache rise in her chest, an emotion she hadn't felt since her parents were alive. Respect, gratitude, connection. Then, just past midnight, a rustling noise broke through the storm. A slow, deliberate sound like footsteps on wet leaves pressed against the walls of the house. Ella froze. Marcus's eyes sharpened. He motioned for her to stay back as he moved toward the window. The figure outside was barely visible through the rain, but the intent was unmistakable. The stranger had returned. Ella's heartbeat thundered louder than the storm. Marcus stood firm, blocking her from sight, ready to alert the police, ready to fight if he had to. He wasn't a large man, but he carried something far stronger than muscle: purpose. And in that moment, she saw him not as a janitor, not as someone broken by life, but as someone who refused to let fear win again. The stranger lingered outside for minutes that felt like hours before the approaching sirens, finally called by Marcus, scattered him into the darkness. Ella collapsed into a chair, shaking, overwhelmed by the reality she had narrowly escaped. Marcus stayed until the police searched the area and ensured she was safe. Even when exhaustion dragged at him, he didn't leave her side until dawn softened the storm into silence. By the time morning sunlight replaced the fear of the night, Ella's eyes were filled with tears, not from terror, but from the overwhelming realization that someone she barely noticed had cared enough to save her. Marcus gathered his worn jacket, ready to leave quietly, but she stopped him, her voice trembling as she thanked him, not just for coming to her house, but for choosing to see her when so many others didn't. She asked him gently why he had gone so far for someone who wasn't family. Marcus looked at her with tired, honest eyes and said that sometimes the people we aren't related to end up being the ones our heart refuses to lose. He couldn't let her become another memory carved in regret. He wanted her to live, to be safe, to know she mattered. Their lives changed after that night. Ella stopped walking home alone. Marcus no longer blended into the background of the workplace. She made sure he was seen, appreciated, valued. And slowly, the shared fear of one dark night turned into a shared trust, one that would quietly grow into something far deeper. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Soul Tale. Your support helps us bring more emotional, life-changing stories to you. Before you go, comment below. What would you have done if you were in Marcus's place?